Mother's Day. For most people, it's a day filled with joy, with the smell of flowers and the warmth of family. But in my house, it had always been something else. A competition. A silent contest of who could impress our mother more. And when it came to that game, my older sister always won. That morning, I woke up early. On my nightstand sat a small box wrapped carefully in soft paper. Inside was my gift for my mom, a bracelet with tiny charms I had spent nearly an hour choosing at the store. Each charm meant something personal: a flower she loved, a shape that reminded me of a childhood memory, little details I hoped she would notice. It wasn't luxury, it wasn't designer, but it was mine, something I had worked for, saved for, and poured my heart into. When I arrived at my parents' house, the atmosphere was already buzzing. The living room was full of chatter, laughter, and the rich fragrance of roses. And then, as if perfectly timed, my sister walked in. She never just showed up. She made an entrance. In her arms was an enormous bouquet of long-stemmed roses, tied with a silk ribbon. In her other hand, a glossy gift bag. The moment she stepped inside, everyone gasped. "Oh, how beautiful!" "Look at those roses!" Cameras were out, phones were snapping pictures. She handed the bag to my mom, who pulled out a delicate necklace that shimmered under the light. Gasps again. Applause. My mom's face lit up as she hugged my sister tightly, holding her as if she had just brought her the world. I sat quietly on the edge of the couch, my small gift box growing heavier in my hands. My palms were sweating, my heart racing. I hated that feeling, like a child waiting for approval, knowing it would never come. Finally, my turn came. I stood up, forcing a smile, and handed my mom the box. She opened it, her eyes scanning the bracelet. For a brief second, I thought I saw her soften, but then it vanished. Her lips curved into a smile that wasn't a smile at all. And then she said the words that sliced right through me. "You couldn't afford anything better?" The room fell silent for half a beat. My sister stifled a laugh, covering her mouth as though it were a joke too good to share out loud. A couple of relatives shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting away. I just stood there, frozen, my face still wearing that practiced smile. Not because I was fine, not because it didn't hurt, but because I refused to let her see me break. I nodded lightly and sat back down. Conversation slowly picked up again, my sister gushing about where she bought her necklace, people clinking glasses, laughter filling the air. But inside me, something had shifted. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't even anger, it was resolve. I knew, right then, that this would be the last Mother's Day where she would look down on me. I had already decided. Next time, I wouldn't smile and stay silent. Next time, she would finally understand. The party went on around me, but I barely heard a word. I sat quietly with my hands folded on my lap, watching as my sister basked in the spotlight. My mom wore her necklace proudly, showing it off to anyone who glanced her way. She didn't even put on my bracelet. It lay forgotten on the coffee table, a small box among plates of cake and half-empty glasses. I stared at it for a long time. That little bracelet was more than just jewelry. It was my effort, my sacrifices, my late nights counting every dollar until I could finally afford it. And in a single sentence, my mom had crushed all of it. But I didn't cry. I didn't even let my voice shake. I smiled, I nodded, I played my part. Because that's what I always did. The truth is, I had grown used to being the other one. The less successful daughter. The less pretty one. The one who never seemed to measure up. My sister didn't even have to try. Everything she touched turned into gold. I was the shadow, always there, always watching her glow. But deep inside, something was boiling. For the first time in years, I didn't just feel hurt. I felt awake. I excused myself and went out to the porch for some air. The cool breeze hit my face, and I let out a shaky breath. My phone buzzed with a notification, a message from a coworker, reminding me about the extra shifts I'd taken on last month. The shifts I had worked just so I could afford that bracelet. The irony was almost laughable. I thought about walking back inside, pretending nothing happened, finishing the day like always. That's what my mom expected. That's what everyone expected. But as I stood there, staring at the quiet street, I realized I didn't want to play that role anymore. When I came back inside, I didn't even glance at my gift. My mom was laughing with my sister, holding her hand as if she were the only daughter in the world. I felt invisible, and yet, at the same time, I felt strangely powerful. Because I had already made a silent decision. That night, when I got home, I sat on the edge of my bed and opened my laptop. I scrolled through websites, searching, thinking, planning. If my mom only valued expensive things, maybe it was time she received something that money alone couldn't fix. I didn't know exactly what it would be yet. But one thing was certain, my next gift wouldn't come wrapped in a ribbon. And when she opened it, she would never forget it. The words kept replaying in my head long after the laughter in the living room had drowned them out. "You couldn't afford anything better?" My mom's voice, sharp yet casual, as if she hadn't just crushed me in front of everyone. I kept smiling, nodding along, pretending I hadn't heard, pretending I wasn't shrinking into myself with every second that passed. My sister leaned closer to her, whispering something I couldn't hear, and they both laughed. My gift sat untouched on the coffee table, almost invisible under the shiny wrapping paper and rose petals from my sister's bouquet. I tried to join the conversation again, but every word caught in my throat. Even when my aunt asked me about work, I gave short answers. My mom didn't even look at me. She was too busy admiring her new necklace, showing it off like a prize. For the rest of the afternoon, I was a ghost in my own family's house. Inside, though, I wasn't numb. I was burning. I wanted to scream, "Do you know what it took for me to buy that bracelet? Do you know how many nights I skipped dinner just to save a little more? Do you even care?" But I said nothing. Because in this family, silence had always been safer than honesty. Still, I couldn't unhear her words. When the guests started leaving, I slipped away quietly. No one noticed. Not my mom, not my dad, not even my sister. I carried the weight of that tiny box back to my car, set it on the passenger seat, and just stared at it for a long time before turning the key in the ignition. Driving home, the silence of the car was deafening. Streetlights flickered past, each one pulling me deeper into thought. Why did I keep trying? Why did I keep hoping she'd see me, appreciate me, love me the way she loved my sister? I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. That was the moment I knew something had to change. Because if love in this family was measured by price tags, then maybe it was time to show her a gift she'd never be able to return. Something she couldn't ignore. That night, lying in bed, I replayed the scene over and over. My mom's face, my sister's laugh, the silence of the room after her words. Every detail etched itself into me like a scar. And as I stared at the ceiling, I whispered to myself, almost like a promise, "Next time, I won't smile. Next time, I won't stay quiet." I didn't know exactly what I would do yet, but I knew one thing for sure. This Mother's Day would not be forgotten. For days after Mother's Day, I carried her words with me everywhere I went. At work, I smiled at customers, typed up reports, answered emails, but in the back of my mind, that sentence echoed like a broken record. You couldn't afford anything better? I thought about it while I poured my morning coffee. I thought about it as I walked past store windows, seeing jewelry I couldn't buy, clothes I couldn't afford. My mom's voice clung to me like a shadow I couldn't shake. At dinner with friends later that week, one of them asked casually, "How was Mother's Day?" My throat tightened. I forced a smile and lied. "It was nice." What else could I say? That my mom compared me to my sister again? That she humiliated me in front of everyone? That nothing I ever gave her was enough? No, that wasn't a story anyone wanted to hear. But inside, I was unraveling. Not with tears, not with sadness, with something else. A kind of sharp, quiet energy I hadn't felt before. One evening, I sat at my desk, the bracelet box still lying there, unopened since that day. I turned it over in my hands, tracing the edges of the paper. I wanted to throw it across the room, to break it, to erase the memory of how she looked at it like it was worthless. But I didn't. Instead, I opened my laptop. I don't know what I was looking for at first. Maybe a distraction, maybe an escape. But my fingers typed almost on their own. Gifts delivered. Then, personalized packages. Then something darker. Documents delivery services. I didn't even know what I was searching for. All I knew was this. My next gift to my mom wouldn't be something she could wear or post on Facebook. It would be something she could never laugh at. Something she could never dismiss with a smug smile. I scrolled for hours. My heart pounded each time I clicked a link, each time I read through a new option. Part of me whispered, "This is too far." But another part, the louder part, whispered back, "She pushed you here." For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing her approval. I wasn't trying to make her proud. I was planning something else entirely. By the time midnight rolled around, I had bookmarked a page. I stared at it for a long moment, the glow of the screen lighting up my face. Then I whispered, almost to myself, "This will be the last time she calls me cheap." And in the silence of my room, with the bracelet box still sitting on my desk, I clicked order. The confirmation email came through at 12:37 a.m. My order had been placed. I sat there in the dim glow of my laptop screen, staring at the words as though they belonged to someone else. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from adrenaline. For the first time in years, I wasn't just reacting to my mom's cruelty. I was in control. The package wasn't flowers, or chocolates, or some shiny piece of jewelry she could flaunt on Facebook. No, it was something different, something sharp, something that couldn't be ignored. I had spent hours scrolling through websites before I found it. The service promised discreet delivery, no flashy wrapping, no cheerful ribbons, just a plain box that blended in with any other delivery on a porch. Harmless on the outside, devastating inside. I hesitated before typing in my payment information. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I thought about my sister, about how she would probably mock me for even trying. I thought about my dad, who would probably stay silent like he always did. And I thought about my mom, holding that necklace, smiling so wide, while my bracelet sat forgotten in its box. That memory hardened me. Click, order confirmed. Afterward, I just sat there, staring at the screen. For a moment, I almost laughed. I couldn't believe I'd actually done it. Me, the quiet daughter, the one who always smiled and stayed in the background. I had just set something in motion that none of them would see coming. For the rest of the week, I went about my life as if nothing had changed. At work, I clocked in and out. I joined my friends for coffee. I even texted in the family group chat, answering questions with the same polite tone as always. No one suspected a thing. But every night, before bed, I opened my email and checked the tracking number. The package was moving, from the warehouse, to the shipping center, to my mom's city. Step by step, closer and closer. And each time I checked, I felt that quiet thrill again. A sense of justice. Not revenge exactly, but a balance finally being restored. On the 6th day, I saw the words I'd been waiting for. Out for delivery. I closed my laptop slowly, my chest tight, my hands steady now. This was it. By tonight, the package would be sitting on my mom's porch, and when she opened it, when she saw what I had chosen, I knew she would never look at me the same way again. And that was the point. The days between placing the order and the package arriving felt endless. On the surface, nothing in my life had changed. I woke up early, went to work, smiled at customers, and nodded along to conversations like I always did. But underneath, every minute felt heavy with anticipation. It was like living with a secret burning inside me, one I couldn't share with anyone. My family group chat buzzed constantly that week. My sister posted photos of her necklace, writing captions like, "Best Mother's Day ever. Mom deserves the world." The comments poured in. Likes, heart emojis, relatives praising her for being the thoughtful daughter. No one mentioned my gift. No one even asked if I had brought anything. It was as if my bracelet never existed. Each time I saw another photo of my mom smiling with that necklace, I didn't feel jealousy anymore. I felt calm, because I knew what was coming. At night, I checked the tracking updates like clockwork. Arrived at distribution center. Processed through facility. In transit. Each line felt like a heartbeat, pulling me closer to the moment. Meanwhile, life in my parents' house went on as usual. My dad sent short, dry texts about errands. My sister bragged about how she was planning a weekend trip with her boyfriend. My mom, of course, posted selfies, always tilting her head just enough so that necklace glittered in the sunlight. They had no idea that something else was on its way. On the 5th day, I had dinner with a friend. She asked me if I was okay, said I looked different. I just smiled and shrugged. How could I explain it? That I felt strangely powerful? That I wasn't the same girl who used to sit quietly while everyone else outshined her? By the 6th morning, I barely slept. I kept refreshing the tracking page on my phone until finally, at 7:42 a.m., the words appeared, "Out for delivery." That phrase sent a chill through me. I set my phone down and just sat there, staring at the wall. By tonight, everything would change. I tried to distract myself, but every sound made me jump. The buzz of a notification, the ring of a phone, even the sound of the mail truck outside. I imagined my mom stepping onto the porch, seeing the box waiting for her. I imagined her bringing it inside, unwrapping it carefully, expecting something sweet or thoughtful. And then, her face draining of color. That thought kept me company all day. When the sun started to set, I couldn't sit still any longer. I paced my living room, my heart racing. The package was there by now. She had it. She had probably opened it. And whatever was happening inside that house, the silence, the gas, maybe even the shouting, I wasn't there to see it. But I didn't need to be, because this time I wasn't invisible. This time I had finally left my mark. The notification came at 3:14 p.m. sharp. Delivered. I stared at my phone screen for a long time, frozen. There it was, the moment I had been waiting for all week. A small, plain cardboard box sitting on my mom's porch. I imagined it so clearly, I almost didn't need the tracking update. The sun hitting the faded welcome mat. The sound of the delivery truck pulling away. That unassuming little package left behind, blending in like it was nothing. But I knew it was everything. I pictured my mom opening the door, expecting another bouquet from my sister's endless stream of admirers, or maybe a box of chocolates from a distant relative. Her face would light up at first. She loved surprises, as long as they came wrapped in silk ribbons and gold foil. But this box was different. It was ordinary on the outside. Brown tape, no labels that gave anything away. The kind of box you wouldn't look at twice if you passed it on the street. And that was the beauty of it. I imagined her carrying it inside, calling for my dad, maybe even for my sister if she happened to be visiting. She'd set it down on the dining table, probably roll her eyes, and mutter something about people wasting money on shipping. Then she'd open it. I could almost hear the rip of the tape, the sound of cardboard tearing. I could almost see the moment her fingers brushed aside the packing paper. The second her eyes landed on what was really inside. And that's when everything would shift. Her smile would falter. Her breath would catch. The color would drain from her face. She would look again, almost in disbelief, as though she had misunderstood. But no, the truth was staring right back at her. By then, my dad would be at her side, frowning. My sister would be leaning in, curious. And in the next moment, silence would fall over the whole house. The kind of silence that says, everything we thought was safe is no longer safe. I wasn't there, but I didn't need to be. I could feel it. I could feel the air in that room turning heavy the moment the box was opened. Because this wasn't a gift she could laugh at. It wasn't something she could toss aside. It wasn't something she could compare to my sister's necklace. No, this was something else entirely. And from that moment on, nothing in my family would ever be the same again. By evening, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first, it was just 1 or 2 messages. Then, it turned into dozens. I opened the family group chat, and the screen nearly froze from the flood of notifications. The first message was from my sister. "What did you do?" Then another. "Are you out of your mind?" My mom didn't type. Instead, she sent a photo. Blurry, rushed, taken with shaking hands. A photo of the open box sitting on her dining table, its contents scattered like spilled secrets. My heart jumped into my throat. Even through the poor quality, I could see enough to know. They had finally seen it. Then came the voice messages. One after another, my sister's voice shrieking, almost incoherent. "Do you realize what you've done? Do you realize what this means?" Her tone wasn't mocking this time. It wasn't smug. It was panicked. For the first time in my life, my sister sounded afraid. My dad's name popped up next. He almost never texted, so the sight of his message alone made me pause. It wasn't long, just one line. "This has gone too far." I stared at it for a long time. My chest tightened, not with regret, but with something else. A strange, undeniable satisfaction. Because all my life, I had been invisible. The quiet one. The one who smiled when insulted. The one who gave gifts that no one cared about. But tonight, they couldn't ignore me. They couldn't ignore this. The chat kept exploding. My sister demanded that I explain myself. My aunt chimed in, asking what was happening. My mom sent another message. Not angry, but cold. Deadly cold. "You had no right." And still, I didn't reply. I just watched as the people who had dismissed me, belittled me, humiliated me, now scrambled, desperate to make sense of what I had done. 10 minutes later, another message appeared. This time, from my mom again. Only 2 words. "Call me." I set the phone down slowly. My hands weren't shaking. My breathing was steady. For once, I was the one holding the power. And as the notifications kept pouring in, as the family chat spiraled out of control, I leaned back in my chair and whispered to myself, "Now you understand." Because no necklace, no roses, no expensive gift could ever create this kind of impact. And the best part? They still didn't know what was coming next. It took me a long time to open my mom's photo again, the one she had sent to the family chat. My hands hovered over the screen, my pulse steady but heavy. I wanted to savor this moment, because after years of being dismissed, overlooked, and treated as less than, this was my turn. The picture was grainy, but the contents of the box were unmistakable. Stacks of papers, envelopes, photocopies, documents that I had found months earlier, tucked away in an old folder my mom probably thought no one would ever see. Bank statements, transaction records, and more than anything else, proof of something she had hidden for years. Money. Money she had siphoned quietly out of my dad's account. Money that disappeared whenever bills were late or when she claimed she couldn't help me with college tuition. Money that explained why my sister always had new clothes, new gadgets, new gifts to give, while I was told to make do with whatever scraps I had. And now, it was all laid out in front of her, black and white, undeniable. My mom had opened the box, expecting another gift. Instead, she was staring at the truth she thought she had buried. No wonder the family chat was in flames. My sister's frantic messages made sense now. She had always been the favorite, but deep down, maybe she had known why. Maybe she had suspected the extra help she received wasn't exactly honest. My dad's short, sharp text, "This has gone too far," wasn't directed at me. It was directed at her, at the betrayal sitting on their dining table, impossible to ignore. And my mom's cold message, "You had no right." That said it all. She didn't deny it. She didn't try to explain. She just hated that I had pulled the mask off in front of everyone. I could almost see her face as she flipped through the papers, her hands trembling, her skin paling with every page. I could almost hear the silence in that dining room, the silence of secrets unraveling. This wasn't just a bracelet she could toss aside. This wasn't a necklace she could compare against my sister's. This was truth. Ugly, unavoidable truth. For the first time in years, I was the one who had given her something she could never return. Something she could never laugh at. And for once, my mom was the one left speechless. The group chat went quiet after my mom's last message. You had no right. For hours there was nothing. No more voice messages from my sister. No more questions from my aunt. No more one-liners from my dad. Just silence. It was almost worse than the chaos. Almost. Then, at 10:02 p.m., my phone rang. My mom's name lit up the screen. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the answer button. For a moment, I thought about picking up, listening to her try to twist the story, maybe even guilt me into apologizing. That was her specialty. But I didn't. I let it ring until it stopped. A few minutes later, another call, this time from my dad. Then my sister, then both of them again. I ignored them all. The power wasn't in answering. The power was in silence, and it drove them crazy. At 10:46 p.m., Saut, a new message appeared in the chat. From my dad. Just 4 words. "We need to talk." I almost laughed. For years, I had begged them to talk. Begged them to see me, to listen, to treat me like I mattered. And now, when the truth was finally out in the open, they were the ones begging for my attention. I typed nothing. I turned off my phone and set it face down on my nightstand. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Because here's the thing, I hadn't ordered that package out of revenge. Not really. It wasn't about punishing my mom. It wasn't about embarrassing my sister. It was about proving something to myself. That I wasn't powerless. That I wasn't invisible. That I could leave a mark they couldn't erase. Maybe they'd never forgive me. Maybe the family would never be the same again. But deep down, I realized I didn't care anymore. I had spent my whole life trying to buy love that was never for sale. And on that Mother's Day, when she looked at me and sneered, "You couldn't afford anything better?" I finally understood. She was right. I couldn't afford anything better, and I didn't need to, because what I gave her wasn't a bracelet, or a necklace, or even the documents in that box. What I gave her was the truth, and the truth was priceless. I turned off the light, lay back on my pillow, and closed my eyes. The phone kept buzzing in the dark, one vibration after another, but I didn't move. For once, I was the one who decided how the story ended. And this time, it ended with me smiling.